All right. Hi, Jennifer. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me and talk with me today. I'm really excited to have you, and thank you again so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to sharing my experience and the process of applying to business school.
Awesome. Thanks. So I'll start by just kind of giving you the floor if you want to tell the viewers a little bit more about you and maybe a little bit about your pre-MBA background and how
Yeah.
helped you get to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm originally from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and went to University of Minnesota for undergrad, went to their business school for undergrad, and kind of started out in finance and mathematics was the degree that I got. So didn't really give that a whole lot of thought at the time. It was something that I was good at, so I thought that I would pursue it, and that led me to an internship with a financial services company, which then I started full-time after graduation, and quickly found that it wasn't necessarily what I was super passionate about. I appreciated my experiences, but was ready to kind of look for something more. And the way that I was able to do that was spent a couple years in an internal strategy or internal consulting role with the financial services company, and really liked the problem-solving aspect of things, coupled with some opportunities to think through the people side of the business and how you are able to attract and retain top talent and really keep them engaged in their jobs. And so kind of bringing those two aspects together, it gave me a little bit more clarity in terms of what my next career step was in consulting. And so that's why I decided to apply to business school and attended Duke University, graduated in 2016, and have been working for Deloitte Consulting in the human capital practice for about 2.5 years now.
Awesome. Great. So I'd love to go back to your experience in applying to business school. I feel like every candidate that I've worked with has some doubts or concerns about their own candidacy. Everybody's telling themselves they'll never get into any schools.
Yep.
Yeah, right. So take me back to that time, and what were the biggest concerns that you had about your own candidacy, and what do you do to A, get your confidence up, and B, address shortcomings in your profile when you're applying?
Yep. So my journey was a little bit unique in that it actually took me a year longer to get admitted to business school, because my first go around I was actually denied from 2 schools. And I think it could have been a combination of things. It could have been a Gmat score. It could have been, my candidacy just didn't stand out. And so I think having been denied or, told you're not good enough for a school, obviously there's going to be some self-doubts there. But
Sure.
I knew that this was a dream of mine. I knew that it was something that was worth it. I knew that it was worth the extra time and sacrifice. And so some of the things that I did was I took it upon myself to take a prep course for Gmat, because that was something that I struggled with. I'm not naturally a solid standardized test taker, and I think it just took a little bit extra time to figure out how to take the test and in an effective way, and then make sure that I got the necessary help there. So that was one of the things that I did, and I think I also stopped focusing on what I thought schools wanted to hear, what I thought the perfect candidate looked like, and really thought about who I am and what makes me great and what I can bring to these schools.
Awesome. So what tips would you have for reapplicants to business school outside of just improving your Gmat score? How did you go through the process of kind of bettering your own brand and candidacy between those years that you applied?
Yeah, I think for me it was really an introspective process. I think the first time around what I had nailed down was I knew why I wanted to go to business school, and I knew what I wanted to do career-wise. I think that's the easy part, right? We all kind of figure out, how we want to pivot our careers, but we don't really think through how to tell our story and our brand. And so I spent I spent time really just talking to friends and family as well as journaling to understand a little bit more about who I truly am, and from my strengths to my weaknesses and failures, and how, getting cut from a nationals dance team, how that shaped who I am, how growing up in a kind of wealthy, well-to-do area, but maybe my family being a little bit lower class in that society, how that made me who I am, and that allows me to contribute something special and unique. And so kind of going back and thinking through those different stories, and how that contributes to who I am today and what that means, and how I show up and what I have to offer to my classmates at school and in the classroom.
Yeah, I think that's a really good strategy, especially coming from somebody like you who came from a more traditional business background.
Exactly.
To lean on some of those softer factors of you and your life and your personal background to differentiate makes a ton of sense, for sure. So let me ask you this, and tell me if this is an unfair question. But Duke kind of has a reputation for, Team Fuqua. It's really energetic. It has a reputation for being really attractive to consultants and wannabe marketers, maybe entrepreneurs. I know it's really strong in healthcare. So did you have any concerns coming from a financial services background? And how did you kind of position yourself as a fit for Duke, given that its brand kind of aligns in that less quant, if that's fair to say?
Yep. Yeah. No, I think that's a fantastic question. And I think one thing that I would recommend to every candidate is to really visit the schools that you're most interested in. And I think for me, when I visited Duke, I knew that it was just a great fit based on the students that I talked to. They were really willing to go out of their way to talk with me, tell me about their experiences, and I felt like that kind of natural personality fit when I was there. A couple other specific things that I focused on in terms of my candidacy was I knew that leadership development was really important to me, both in becoming a better leader myself, but also taking classes and courses that were focused on that type of content, because I knew that that would help me in my future career aspirations. And I thought that Duke had a pretty unique and pretty robust program offering when it came to some of those. So for example, Duke is known for its Coach K Center of Leadership and Ethics. And there's a fellowship program where you're able to become what's called a Coach K Center of Leadership and Ethics Fellow your second year to provide coaching and mentorship to first-year students. And so that was something in particular that I was really interested in. And I kind of focused on tying some of the things that I wanted to contribute and give back to the school and how that relates to who I am and what's important to me.
Anything surprise you about the application process in general? Like, is there anything that you wish you had known maybe heading into it the first time you applied?
Yeah, I think I think the amount of time that it took, and really from, I knew that I would have to manage my recommenders. I knew that it takes time to study for the Gmat, but I think what surprised me was how much time it takes to put together a solid story around how to sell yourself. Because the $1 million question, right, is why should this school choose me? And rather than, why do I want to be at this school and why do I need this school and what am I going to do with insert X school MBA, but it's why me and what can I contribute to this community and this school and how can I leave a legacy and give back. And I think that really takes some time and thought and research and speaking with current students and even getting to know admissions a little bit in the process to be able to convey that in a compelling way.
Yeah, and I know that's really important to a school like Duke that really wants to make sure that candidates know what they're in for.
Yep.
So talked about going to campus and getting to know the school that way. What other interactions did you have with Duke to kind of show that interest or get to know the program before you apply? I mean, did you reach out to individual students online? Did you keep in touch with students you met on campus? Did you go to the forums? Like, what other steps did you take to kind of network with the program, if you will?
I actually combined my kind of future career interest with students who had graduated from Duke and were working for Deloitte. So I knew that consulting was something that was interesting to me. I knew a little bit about Deloitte and its unique human capital practice, and I actually knew before applying and as I was in the process of writing those essays that that's something that I wanted to do. And so as a part of testing that out, I was able to reach out to some folks who worked at Deloitte who were in the human capital practice who graduated from Duke, and were able to kind of talk about their experiences at the school and how that school best prepared them to launch and start a career in consulting, as well as how some of the unique class offerings and some of the extracurricular activities really tied well and prepared them well to do human capital work.
I think that is so smart. And I actually coach candidates to do that very thing. Like, reach out to your post-MBA employers and learn what it is that they're looking for, network with alumni, and then you can kind of name drop in your essays and really show you've done your research and show that you're that much more employable. I think that's such a smart strategy. So really, really good to hear that it helped.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So tell me a little bit more about how Duke helped you. What is it that you think Duke did that maybe other schools couldn't have done for you, and are you happy you went there?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure I'm obviously biased with my experience, but I think the type of relationships that I was able to foster during those 2 years was something that meant the world to me. And I think knowing that I wanted to go into consulting, I thought it was a phenomenal school that really prepared me well for that. I also think everyone is just so willing to help and help others reach their goals and become better. And I think that that's something that's always just been a passion of mine, is helping others realize their full potential and coaching them to get there. And I think in a lot of ways, whether it's your peers or it was second year students, that was something that they were able to really provide me with. And I know fostering those relationships and that network is going to continue for me throughout the rest of my time in my career.
Awesome. Really helpful. So I have a couple last questions. First, I'll just throw you kind of a catch-all question, and that is, any other advice that you'd have for MBA candidates in general?
Yeah, I think, and I know I kind of already mentioned this and reiterated it, but I cannot enforce it enough how important it is to really dig deep and do that introspective reflection exercise, because admissions really wants to, the applications that they enjoy reading most are the ones that are vulnerable, are authentic, and really deeply genuine. And so, think about some of the things that maybe you would even be afraid of sharing with your grandmother or sharing with people that know you best. Like, how do you kind of bring that side out of yourself and effectively articulate that on paper? And I think that just takes time and practice, and also getting some feedback and reactions from other people as well.
That's awesome. Couldn't agree more. I think that's really, really good advice. So last question, which I've been asking pretty consistently at the end of these interviews, is based on your current perspective and where you are in your career today, what would you say are the 3 must-have qualities for any successful business person?
That's a great question. I think, so a few things. I think number 1, you have to be willing to take risks and get outside of your comfort zone. I think the world that we live in, especially the business community, it is changing drastically through technology, ways of working. There's just so many different facets that organizations are trying to, compete even more. And so I think you just really need to be able to kind of take those risks to lead and help the organization move in the direction that is wanting to, because complacency is never going to get you to ultimately where you need to and where an organization and a company needs to. So I think one, being willing to take risks. I think number two, willing to take time out to create a followership. So in order to succeed and advance in your career, at some point you're probably going to have an opportunity to manage an individual, a team, and hopefully grow into a leadership role if that's something that you so desire. And I think MBA candidates often do, right? We have, we're very ambitious. We have lots of dreams and goals. And I think in order to continue to progress, you need to create a followership. And the way that you do that is taking time, expressing interest, sitting down to understand more beyond just work, what makes that person tick and how you most effectively motivate them. And I think that relationship that you have with people to be able to follow you will obviously serve you well.
Yeah.
So I think that's the second thing. And then if I were to say a third thing, I think it's not being afraid to say no. So I know that that's something that is really resonating with me right now as I'm serving my client in consulting, which obviously takes up a lot of time. I do a lot of work to give back to the firm, and there's inherently more opportunities that come my way than I'm willing to say yes to. And so, or I'm able to say yes to just physically. And so I think not being afraid to say no to things that you just can't commit to, and being able to prioritize and focus on certain things so that you can give all you can at that point in time. So being willing to prioritize and say no to some things.
So insightful. Thank you, Jen. That was really awesome, really helpful, really high value advice. I really appreciate the time. Again, can't thank you enough.
Absolutely. You're very welcome. Thank you.
You bet. Talk to you soon.